Up in the corner there, you say you accept that probably. All right. We'll go ahead and go live, and then we can start talking here. All right, we're about a minute early to be kicked off here, but I just wanted to kind of welcome everybody. This is Life's Co-Pilot, Caring Transitions. Indy North created this portal called Life's Co-Pilot that's free to all seniors, their family members, their caregivers, with resources. We try to bring you guys resources. We do 2 of these expert panels a month. So we bring in resources of anything that deals with senior activities or senior care or senior resources of what have you. And today I'm particularly excited because we're going to be introducing the people in the Midwest to a concept that no one seems to ever have heard of. I talk about it all the time when I'm out in the senior networking world, and no one's ever seemed to hear of it. It's kind of a coastal thing. So a lot of times the Midwest gets things about 5 years after the coast. So we have today Katie Ford. She is the Director of Farm Programs with Cypress Adventures Incorporated out of Hartsville, South Carolina. By the way, full disclosure, she also is my favorite guest we've ever had because she's my daughter. So we've got that going as well. And so I've been hearing Katie talk about therapeutic horticulture now for some time, as she's been studying it and doing and working in that area. And I tell my senior services providers and friends and coworkers about it, and no one seems to have ever heard about it. Now, I will say in the process, it's happening, but they aren't necessarily thinking that's what they're calling. I think of Tina McIntosh with Joy's House, Adult Day Center. She has a back patio or back garden behind her place that is absolutely to die for, which is in that sphere. You know, I think of when I picked a senior living community for my uncle, whose garden was so robust on the back of his little patio in his upstairs apartment that when we were moving him out, one of the ladies in his neighbors said that she moved there because she saw his greenery from the road all the time. So it has been and I picked a place that had 5 acres of green space and had a garden area that was right out his window, and he was the president of the garden club and all that kind of stuff for a while. So it's been going on. We just don't know about it. So Katie, I am turning this thing over to you. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. I mean, beyond, my favorite daughter, but tell us who you are, what you do, and let's start finding out about this therapeutic horticulture thing.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. My favorite father. So, like you said, therapeutic horticulture is around us all the time. We just don't necessarily know to define it by that. So like gardening at senior care facilities or gardening at schools. Lots of schools are starting horticulture programs there. Also, just there's kind of a buzz term right now of forest bathing. And forest bathing is also a form of therapeutic horticulture. Essentially, you go out into a wooded area and you just find mindfulness and breathe and center yourself, because plants have a very grounding energy and they help. We are so interconnected with nature that actually being around it helps calm us. It helps reduce stress. And it also has other health benefits, which I will talk about a little bit more. I'm going to share my PowerPoint here. Let's see. So I'll just give a little brief rundown of me. So I am.
Well, you haven't shared your screen yet, kid.
I know, I'm working on it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So let's see here.
The green button at the bottom.
Yeah, my computer is making me authenticate that I'm allowing this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now it should work. Um, I might have to jump out and jump back in. Sorry, Apple problem. Um, will that be a pain if I
I
do
don't
that?
know. I don't know if it makes any difference or not. So,
Okay, let's see. I will pop out and pop back in. Okay,
okay,
bye.
we'll be here. I'll do a song and dance for a while. So we are on hold right now as we're trying to work out some tech difficulties. Our speaker is trying to go in and get her computer to allow her to share her screen. Worst case scenario, I will take a look and see if we can share it from my end. So we're going to give it a minute, see what happens, and go from there. So hang with us as we're coming back into this process here. I don't know what's going on. So this is Life's Copilot. We are, Caring Transitions Ending North provided this as a tool for you to help seniors and the caregivers and what have you. Well, let's see. I don't know what's going on. There we go. Welcome
Okay,
back.
I am back. Now, let's share this screen. There we go. Okay.
All right, perfect.
Woohoo! And so we will present it. Okay, so I hope everybody can see the screen.
Yep, this looks good.
All right, perfect. So therapeutic horticulture was what was old is new again. And I am currently working on my bachelor's in horticulture with a certificate in therapeutic horticulture through Oregon State University. I'm very lucky to be able to do my degree all online because I obviously work full time at Cypress Adventures, helping them establish their permaculture farm, working with adolescents in creating this farm. So I've used this term a lot. What is therapeutic horticulture? So by modern standards, therapeutic horticulture is a professionally facilitated treatment intervention using plants and nature-based activities to work towards physical, psychological, social, cognitive, spiritual, and vocational goals of the participant. This is not a practice, though. The use of horticulture to calm the senses dates back as far as 2000 BC in Mesopotamia. Also in 500 BC, the Persians began creating sensory gardens using beautiful plantings for your sight, fragrance for your scent, flowing water for your hearing, and cooling methods. So this practice is something that we humans have been utilizing for millennia. We just have a term for which to define it, and we have certified practitioners that work with healthcare teams in hospital settings, in senior care settings, et cetera, to help the participants reach their wellness goals. So a little bit more history. So in the early 1800s, about 1812, 1817, depending on which article you ask, Dr. Benjamin Rush, who is often known as the father of American psychiatry, established a psychiatric facility that utilized gardening, among other programs, as treatment interventions. He reported that the garden settings held curative benefits for people with mental illness, and his findings helped the U.S. gradually incorporate agricultural and gardening activities in public and private psychiatric hospitals. And this is a fact that I thought was really interesting. After World War I, there was an enormous number of returned wounded veterans, and they participated in horticulture in clinical settings. And it was initially utilized as occupational and recreational therapy as a part of their rehabilitation because it's very physical and it gets them outside. In 1972, the Manager Foundation teamed with undergraduate and the very therapy curriculum. A year
We're having some sound difficulties. I think your storm is hitting you a little bit. Yeah, well, we're gonna have to. You got a lot of it written out. Well, that's good as well. But go ahead and right now, I think you're having some storm issues because we're having a lot of cutting in and out.
Cutting in and I'm just happy.
Well, so we got right now the senior benefits from therapeutic horticulture and horticultural therapy in multitude of ways. One thing too, if you want to, you can start chatting with me on the bottom if you got some things you want to say, and try to talk whenever you can, see if it comes through. It can help reduce stress and anxiety, focusing on simple hands-on tasks. Plant care can be meditative. Seniors that participate in horticultural therapy often feel a sense of tranquility and helps them feel more relaxed. Therapeutic horticulture can improve physical health. Gardening is very physical, bending, lifting, reaching, etc. These movements can help improve strength, coordination, endurance. And it has been shown that for seniors that participate in gardening reduce their risk for heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. Gardening helps increase cognitive. It also requires focus and attention to detail. And a study by Cambridge researchers found that gardening generates higher levels of productive engagement and positive effects in people with dementia compared to other activities. So if I'm missing things, please.
So maybe took my headphones out. So maybe it'll.
Yeah, there you go. That works.
There we go. Okay. So thank you for reading my slide for me. I appreciate that. All right. So continued, what does this have to do with seniors? So garden programs also help seniors with social interaction. So a lot of times when seniors are in living facilities, they can feel a real deep sense of loneliness. This also happens with seniors in anywhere they're living. They don't have as many friends, or their loved ones don't visit them as often. So horticultural therapy sessions provide seniors with opportunities to socialize with others with similar interests, and this can reduce feelings of loneliness and improve overall mental health. Spending time with plants can also boost a person's mood and overall sense of well-being. Nurturing plants gives seniors a sense of purpose and accomplishment, thus giving them a more positive outlook on life. It also helps get seniors outside and into the sunshine. This naturally gives them exposure to vitamin D, which has been linked to betterment in mood and wellness. Contact with nature produces positive emotions, and the smell of plants is often fixed to fond memories. So this can help with memory recall in memory care patients as well. So who else can benefit? I've talked a lot about seniors, but all of these benefits can actually help other communities of people as well. So children, teens, young adults, elders, people with mental health concerns, people with mild, acute, or chronic medical conditions, people who have mobility, vision, hearing, speaking, and or sensory impairments, people who have intellectual or developmental disabilities, people with traumatic brain or spinal cord injuries, people with the invisible diseases, so like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, Lyme disease, etc. People who've experienced trauma, violence, even sexual assault, people who are in palliative or hospice care, people who are incarcerated. There are a lot of programs for gardening in prisons nowadays because it helps teach them hands-on skills that they can use when they get out, and it also helps them deal with the situation they're in by getting them in touch with nature. It can help veterans. It helps people who work at a computer all day and have limited access to the natural world. It also helps people who are striving to have a deeper sense of well-being, physical health, and balance in their lives. So what activities can be expected with horticultural therapy / therapeutic horticulture? So garden maintenance activities, weeding, deadheading, planting, watering, starting and growing plants from seeds, planting, planting, maintaining vegetables, maintaining a perennial shrub nursery, planting, maintaining raised beds or annual containers, greenhouse production, hydroponics, aquaponics, vertical gardening systems, indoor, outdoor plant propagation, plant-based arts and crafts, creation of products, so like pressed flower cards, salsa, herb blends, herb bundles, that sort of thing. So like culinary stuff and even just like fun, cute things that they can make. Cut flower gardening and bouquets, nature walks and forest bathing, as I said earlier, as well as vocational training in the green industry and workplace psychosocial skills, mindfulness activities, and even plant sales. So I brought up the AHTA earlier. So the American Horticultural Therapy Association was established in 1973, and it's the only national United States organization advocating for the development of the horticultural therapy profession and the practice of horticulture as therapy for human well-being. So basically, it's like the governing body. So they give characteristics for what could be classified as a therapeutic garden. They are the governing body for all certified horticultural therapists. And so they're the big umbrella that keeps everything in check because it is a therapeutic method. So therapists have their governing bodies, horticultural therapists have theirs as well. And I included the link if anybody is interested in looking any more into the American Horticultural Therapy Association. So there are some schools that offer therapeutic horticulture degrees or certificate programs. So mine is the fourth one down, Oregon State University. Go Beavers. And then, so Colorado State, Delaware Valley, University of Florida, Rutgers, Tennessee Tech, University of Tennessee, Temple University, the Horticultural Therapy Institute, UCLA Extension, and then one of my favorites, very fond of North Carolina University and the North Carolina Botanical Garden. They kind of work in hand conjunction to do therapeutic horticulture certificates. And they're, I believe, working on a horticultural therapy program as well. So what exactly makes a garden therapeutic? So these are the guidelines from the AHTA that classify a garden as being therapeutic. So there are 7 characteristics. The first being scheduled and programmed activities. So whether that is an actual horticultural therapist facilitating activities at this garden, or if it's just the garden has events or it's open to the public and it creates this space that people can go and walk around and have their own activities there. And then features modified to improve accessibility. So if you see the little image that I have in the background, you can tell that the paths are paved and they're really wide. So wheelchairs, walkers, strollers even can get through and they don't have any trouble meandering around the garden. There's also access to seating and shade, and maybe even the raised garden beds come up to like hip height so that wheelchairs can go underneath them and utilize them. So it's all about accessibility and creating a space that anyone, no matter their mobility or what have you, is able to get around. Well-defined perimeters. So maybe there's like walls on the sides to keep the garden space enclosed, or maybe you can tell very distinctly where the path ends, where the plants begin. Well-defined perimeters. And then a profusion of plants and people / plant interactions. So this basically offers a space where people can interact with the plants, where they can touch them, where they can watch the leaves sway. Maybe they can sit under a tree. Maybe they can actually physically do a hands-on activity. There's a garden that I really love in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's a carnivorous plant garden, and they have a raised bed that's very easily accessible, and you can actually feed the carnivorous plants. So you have a physical interaction with a plant in this space that people can interact with on their own will. There's also benign and supportive conditions. So we have seating, we have shade, so on and so forth. So spaces where people can go, maybe if they get too hot, or maybe if they just want to sit down and enjoy the space rather than walking around. Universal design essentially means it's designed for everyone, and designed for the enjoyment of the most amount of people with the most differences as possible. So there's a space for little kids to run around. There's a space for people to sit and just enjoy. There's bird feeders for birders, et cetera, et cetera. So universal design, everyone can enjoy the space. And then the last but not least is recognizable placemaking. So essentially it's easy to get around. People don't want to go to a place that feels overwhelming or it feels like they could get lost. So you can have really good maps. You can have regular spaces where there's maps of like, you are here, you can get here from there. Or you can physically see the next steps or the parking lot or wherever your car is so that you feel safe and like you know where you're at. So horticultural therapy versus therapeutic horticulture. I've thrown these terms around several times throughout this presentation. So horticultural therapy is the participation in horticultural activities facilitated by a registered horticultural therapist to achieve specific goals within an established treatment, rehabilitation, or vocational plan. So it's an active process that occurs in the context of an established treatment plan where the process itself is considered the therapeutic activity rather than the end product. Then therapeutic horticulture is the participation in horticultural activities facilitated by a registered horticultural therapist or other professionals with training in the use of horticulture as a therapeutic modality to support program goals. So therapeutic horticulture is the process through which participants engage in their well-being through the active or passive involvement in plant and plant-related activities. So you would more likely see, as horticultural therapy is growing as a field, you would be more likely to see therapeutic horticulture out in the world as of right now. So that's what you'll see with those garden programs at senior facilities. That is therapeutic horticulture, whether they use those terms or not. And I can practice therapeutic horticulture as I'm not yet certified, but I am trained in the use of horticulture as a therapeutic modality. All right, so this is a very cool thing that the AHTA has on their website. So you can find certified horticultural therapists near you. They have a little search thing, and I went in here and did this for Indianapolis. And so there is one within 36 miles, the Therapeutic Vine, and it is in Indiana at 47433. So you can find people around. It might be a little tough. They might be 100 miles away, but you can always reach out to them and get more information. And there's a wealth of knowledge online too with therapeutic horticulture. Or you might be able to find a certification program near you as well if you want to join the field. And then we're coming up on the summary. So the use of therapeutic horticulture is beneficial for many, many populations. One of those populations being seniors. Seniors that participate in therapeutic horticulture programs have shown increased cognition, better mental well-being, better physical condition, better mood, and a better quality of life. Gardening can be rewarding for seniors. It can give them something to look forward to each day and a sense of accomplishment when their garden thrives. Gardening can also give seniors a chance to get some fresh air, be surrounded by the beauty of nature, exercise, and socialize with others. This is what makes horticultural therapy in senior living so beneficial. In seniors with memory care, the interaction with plants shows improvements in memory, communication, and cognitive functioning. And I've included some references here. And thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I loved talking about something that I'm so passionate about, and I want more people to know exists.
Well, thank you so much, Katie. I'll tell you one of the things, you and I have talked about this a lot, obviously, and we both have a tendency to like to play in the dirt. So, so there's that. Your apartment is kind of like a, quasi jungle.
There's 3 behind me right now.
Yeah. So anyway, but and it is one of those things that like, for instance, looking at with our uncle, for him, it was very critical that he has a place to go and do that and expose and do things, and his physical limitations are making it more and more difficult, but it's still something he can do, and he still has a lot of plants he can do stuff. But I also have it set up where he looks out his back window at all this green space and the gardens there, and I think that is more critical than people sometimes think. As far
It
as
absolutely is. There's been several studies done, and this is actually one of the reasons why I got into this field, is because in my literal intro to horticulture class that I took, we went over these studies about people having green space outside of windows even. So if a little girl has a tree outside of her window in like a low poverty or in a poverty area, she's less likely to get into crime. She's more likely to graduate from high school. And she just overall has a better sense of well-being just from having a tree outside. And then there was a study between, I believe it was kidney transplant patients. So one patient had a like cement wall that they were looking at outside of their window, and then the other patient had green space that they could look at. And the people who had green space actually got better faster, and they had less pain, and they felt overall better just because they had a better view. And so we're so integrated with nature. And often we find this break now that we have all of this internet and we're all kind of trapped inside on our jobs. We have, there's a split between us and nature. And when we find ourselves back in nature, we notice we can breathe again, or we feel better, we're less stressed. And that also is with seniors. And that's why gardening programs are so important, and having green space around assisted living facilities is so important.
well, it's funny you brought it, one of your initial slides was talking about Dr. Benjamin Rush, and one of his very best friends was Thomas Jefferson, and Jefferson was sending out warnings. This was back in like 1801. He was sending out warnings saying that he was terrified as the cities became more and more people lived in the cities generationally removed from agrarian society, that they would lose touch with how life actually, the essence of life. And he was going through all kinds of political reasons for it as well, but just the disconnect from the human nature of getting away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's being shown time and time again. Like the forest bathing buzz term that I was talking about, there's a big movement towards it now in Japan, because they have such a big, they work like 14 hours a day, just standing up, eating their lunch on their computers all the time. So these companies are setting aside time for forest bathing. They have designated forest bathing parks that people go to, and they go out, get into nature, and it's drastically decreased like heart attacks and other illnesses that come from stress and working and overworking and working inside on computers, just like fast paced. Getting out into nature literally has a chemical shift in your body and decreases your stress and makes you literally feel better. So it's a very important thing. And I want more people to get outside and get less stressed.
Well, it's like, for in my own world, I've got with I've got this one side of my house that I have not really spent any time on. The whole time you lived here, I never went on that side just to mow it. And the I end up putting my beehives over there. So then I go there and hang out with the bees. And then it's ugly over there. So now I'm building this 16 by 26 pollinator garden with apple trees and all kinds of native wildflowers. So it spends a lot of my time focusing on that. But this is something that it's totally anecdotal, but the last time I was at my checkup, my blood pressure was lower than it had been since I was your age. So I don't know that was the causation, but nothing else has changed. So
I mean, if the shoe fits, it seems pretty apt. to me. It
Mhm.
seems like a very like a perfect connection of what my point is that
Yeah.
gardening literally makes you feel better. Not only like just getting out in the sense of the garden, but literally the physicality of gardening. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And there are different tools that are adapted for people with mobility issues. Like there's arthritic tools that actually bend so that you don't have to move your wrists as much. There's long stem shovels or all these other different things to help all people get out into the garden and be able to utilize the space around them. And that's part of why raised beds with the longer legs were created, was for people in wheelchairs to actually be able to sit underneath them and utilize and garden with them. Yeah.
You were in North Carolina. You were working in a botanical garden. So what was your role there?
So
Was it South Carolina? I guess.
yeah, so I was working at Moore Farms Botanical Garden as the education coordinator there.
And what was your focus of what were you guys reaching out to? Just anybody coming in off the street or
Yeah, it was kind of anybody. It was mainly schools, like youth, to talk to them about gardening. The occasional like senior facility would come in for a field trip. I also did a few educational things at libraries, which was very senior heavy as well. And like did like little crafts where we just like pasted pressed flowers on ornaments, which was tactile with nature, and like did a little potting class and like talked about different gardening through the seasons. Um, so there's so many different ways to tap into these things. With like the youth, I would do like crafts where you go out in the garden, you pick out all these different leaves and stuff, and then you paste it on um, a canvas and then you paint over it or whatever. Or you just do a little scavenger hunt or any way to tap into the garden and actually use your senses is the goal, essentially. And so gardening for youth is super important because a lot of kids don't even know where their food comes from. And so actually seeing a tomato plant and seeing a little tomato growing on it, they go, "Oh my gosh, that's where that came from. That's so cool." And it's also been shown that a child that sees its food go from the garden to the kitchen to its plate is more likely to eat their vegetables as well. So it's all interconnected, and plants are so interconnected in our lives. If you look around your kitchen, there's plant matter everywhere. If you have bananas in your kitchen, those came from a plant. And so it's a matter of knowing where that comes from and our connection to that.
so the Cypress Adventures, who do you serve there?
At Cypress Adventures, I serve adolescents, so middle school, high school students. And we also do a little bit of like adult team building here and there. But my focus is mainly on the adolescents. So I am helping them build their permaculture farm. And the permaculture farm was literally designed by the students with a someone who had a permaculture farm. So they all worked together to design this. So this is our students' vision coming to life. And we just planted our food forest, which is super exciting. So we have local peach trees, a loquat tree, blueberries, elderberries. We're going to be planting blackberries and rosemary and nasturtiums. So literally everything in the food forest is edible. And once the plants are more established, then we'll introduce vining plants as well to grow up the trees. So every piece of this food forest all works in together, helps each other grow, and also produces food not only for our students to eat for snack, but also for our students to sell at farmers markets in our area. And we have other different projects going on the farm as well that these students have decided upon. So we're going to have a vegetable garden, cut flower garden, um, a rain garden with native plants, so on and so forth. And it's very cool to see the vision coming to life. And these students actually are helping plant it. So they created the vision, they're doing the work to make it, and eventually they'll do the work to help maintain it as well.
Well, that's very cool. So if someone wants to start doing, therapy horticulture rather than horticultural therapy or whatever, but anyway, therapy horticulture, um, and they're wanting to do it, but they don't have a horticultural therapist nearby,
Mhm.
whatever. What kind of things would you recommend someone starting to play with?
Yeah, there's so much online that you can look up and find. But honestly, if you want to just start small and start introducing things here and there, just do like nature walks or like nature crafts. Just the actual physical touching of the nature and getting out into it is so important. Um, I've seen like if you go on a walk and you gather little materials and then you make a little art piece, seeing that whole thing all the way through is a really beautiful thing. Or just getting out into the garden and being more intentional about it rather than being like, oh, I gotta go weed today. Maybe make it more of an event of like, oh, I get to go out in my garden and I get to go take care of my plants that are out there. So adding a little bit more mindfulness to the actual practice of gardening rather than having it be a chore or something that you have to do, make it something you want to do, something you want to be a part of. Or just like go out of your way to go to a park, make the effort to get yourself into nature. If there's not, if you're interested in more of a structured therapeutic horticulture thing, or if you are interested in getting certified in some way, look online. Like I said, there are opportunities for all online certificates. So Oregon State is doing a whole therapeutic horticulture program online. There's like little mini certification programs that you can find. The North Carolina Botanical Garden regularly does programs. You can look at mini botanical gardens and see if they have any of those additional things. Um, so yeah, there's lots of different options where you can find it. And also YouTube. Look on YouTube, see if there's any like horticultural therapists there that have any fun insight that you're looking into. If you're working in a senior facility, again, just make it more intentional. So having a gardening program is wonderful and it's so important for seniors. Um, but maybe in setting more mindfulness behind it or like sitting and enjoying the garden or what have you, just like practicing mindfulness while gardening rather than just having gardening be a task that you do.
When you say that, explain your what you think of as more mindful.
So being more mindful, meaning you are intentionally planting a plant where you're planting it, or you just take a second and you take a few deep breaths, or you have time to just clear your mind and just feel the earth between your fingertips. That's a really great practice of literally just getting your hands in the soil and running the soil in between your hands and just feeling the tactile and tangible that the soil offers because there's fun little textures in there, or just go out and touch a bunch of plants. Just go pet them. That's a whole sensory thing. Go smell, touch, taste if it's not poisonous. And like use all of your senses and just hear the wind blow between the trees, hear the birds chirp, look around, look at all of the beauty that's around you. So use all five senses. And that's the easiest way to get into the mindfulness of it all is just to feel it.
Well, you turned me on to a book that the guy was promoting this national backyard park, and it was I was already in the practice of it, and then he basically, and I basically saw this as an opportunity, but he actually articulated it pretty well. But it was um, what I noticed in my own yard. We live in suburbia, okay, and so you either have commercial or you have residential suburbia, which 90% of the plants are foreign plants that they bring in because they were pretty. But they provide no food source for local, fauna. Okay,
They're
so
pest free.
uh,
And they're pest free.
yes, exactly. And so they have, you've got your Bradford pears, you got all these different kind of things that cause that, or those are worse, but other things just that are taking up space. They don't really provide anything.
Mhm.
But I had noticed I'd started a little garden in my, I have not a lot of sun. So I had these little flower pots or little pots that I was doing three sister gardens in with the corn, beans, and squash. And I was having all kinds of problems getting any kind of bees to pollinate them. I was actually having to use a paintbrush or a Q-tip to do my own pollinating because I couldn't find any bees, native or otherwise. So that's what got me looking into this. And you never see butterflies, you never see things like that. Well, just in the last 3 years of leaving mulch or leaving leaves around, leaving a stick pile, our I've got lots of different kinds of bees now. Of course, now I imported my own bees too. I'm bringing bees in, but and I'm also bringing in mason bees and leafcutter bees. But right now I have tons of all kinds of bees, all different shapes and sizes that are starting to find the habitat,
Mhm.
and I'm getting lots of butterflies, which that in itself is fun to go out there and see what you're going to see, what kind of critters are going to be flying around. Um, so working on my garden, I'm not saying somebody needs to go to that level, okay, but if everybody just did a little patch, all of a sudden you would start seeing butterflies and of different kinds of and most native bees are totally non-aggressive. They wouldn't sting you if you
Mhm.
held them in your hand. But you get a chance to start seeing nature in your yard, even if it's in a little 3 foot by 3 foot patch, so it can make a real difference in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something so magnificent about looking outside and seeing wildlife outside of your house. Like I just moved into a new place, and whoever owned this house previously established a really beautiful garden. There's a lot of like non-natives, which is how landscaping is a lot of the time. You see loropetalums, you see palm trees, whatever. They're pretty, but they don't necessarily do anything for the wildlife. But there's a patch behind my house of just like natives that's just wild and abundant. And to see like a mated cardinal pair appear in my garden, just like hanging out on my bird feeder, or all these other different like butterflies and lizards and all these different creatures enjoying the same space that you enjoy. And you can practice mindfulness with those creatures as well, and just seeing them flutter around and just taking a second to not think about work and not think about your computer and not think about any of the things that are going wrong in your life, just taking a second and being like, wow, nature's really cool. Mindfulness.
Well, I think also the strategizing and planning and trying to create it. It gives your mind a place to run away from the everyday
Exactly.
stress too.
Yeah. Yeah. All of it is therapeutic horticulture. So, like, the planning, the designing, the picking of the plants, like going to a nursery can be really like therapeutic too. Just going around and going, oh, that's cool. That's cool. Or
For
like,
you and I to go, it's expensive though.
yeah, that's true too. But like, even as an example, when I took you to go and do a homework assignment with me, where we just walked around and we touched plants, and we go, "Oh, that one smells really good. That one feels really cool. That one rattles when you shake it." Like you might look like a crazy person at a nursery, but it's really fun.
Now, one
Yeah,
of the things that I have had to learn too, and I think it's all part of the process. I'm trying to create this native garden, right? And understanding the fact that to do that it takes about a 3 year process. Because they say they sleep, they creep, and then they leap. And so the first year sleeping, you're putting roots down, and I've got some annuals in there just to give me some color, and then there's the second year they start coming on better. The third year, the fruition of the vision should come to place. I'm year one, so it is I'm constantly going out there looking at it, trying to see is it coming into my sphere. But I think that's still part of your therapeutic thing because you're getting away from the computer screen for a few minutes. You're doing some things to, you know,
and it's therapeutic in the way that you are seeing the transformation of your garden as well. So like when you walk outside and you go, "Oh my gosh, my rose has a bud. That's so exciting." Or you start to see little hosta sprouts popping up or what have you, these little green pieces that are coming out and you go, "Oh my gosh, I did that. I planted that." And it gives you this sense of accomplishment, and it also is helping the environment, and it's going to make your yard really beautiful as well in the end.
Well, it's like, for me, I know winter is ending because I hate winter because I inside all the time. But when I start seeing the daffodils starting to poke through the snow, that's kind of like, okay, now spring is coming. It's around the
Yeah.
corner. And so,
Yeah. And wintertime can be really difficult for a lot of people. There's a seasonal affective disorder or SADS. So that is literally you become depressed because it's wintertime and you can't go outside and get vitamin D and enjoy anywhere outside of your four walls or the four walls of wherever you have to go or the four walls of your car. But having like house plants or having an herb garden and having like fresh fruits and vegetables during this time can actually help with the SADS and help you feel less depressed, because you see all of the beautiful things around you. So I think get a house plant if you're feeling a little bummed, and you can see your house plant thrive. Be like, wow, my little guy has a new leaf. It's so exciting. And it gives you this like sense of pride too, because you're keeping this thing alive as well as keeping yourself alive, because everybody deserves a little woohoo for doing that because life's
yeah.
hard sometimes.
Well, this is awesome. I really enjoy it. So what would basically, do you have anything that you would recommend for someone that's just getting started that may be afraid that they kill every plant they ever look at or what have you?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing that I can say is to find a house plant that you think is cute and go for it. Um, there's some like really beginner friendly house plants like pothos and that kind of thing. And also don't beat yourself up if you kill it. I have had so many plants that I've killed, a plethora. And I use the rule of threes. So if I buy a plant 3 times and I kill it 3 times, then I don't buy another one. That plant is just not for me, and maybe I'll try again in a few years. If you want to do something outside, you could always do like an herb garden. That's very like apartment, any type of small space friendly because you can stick it in a windowsill, either inside or outside. Um, and you can literally enjoy your fresh culinary herbs throughout um, the season, which is really cool. Or honestly, if you go to a garden center and you go, oh wow, that's so pretty, take it home, repot it, put it outside, and see what happens. You could be pleasantly surprised. So just don't be afraid of plants, is basically my pro tip.
Yeah, it's kind of like with me. I have this vision that I think I would like bonsai trees. Okay, I think they're just amazing. They are not my personality, but so it's like I have learned that I'm much better off raising orchids than bonsai because orchids you water them once a week and you leave them alone, and bonsai you've got to nitpick with them all the time, and that's not me.
And see, I can't even do orchids because my watering schedule is so inconsistent that I'm just like, I need I need more leaves and I need to focus on them not flowering. So you'll find your niche. It could be anything. It just enjoy the ride is essentially the token term for plant ownership.
Well, Katie, thanks so much for sharing. This was fun. It was just a chance to try to share with people and hope that people realize that you can do this and it's not that big a deal. And again, if you kill a plant, get another plant.
Exactly. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Well, thank
Yes.
you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
It was good to see you. Talk to you
Yeah,
later.
you
Hey,
too.
bye
Bye.
bye.